Part 1. The Princess Who Longed for Friends. In the heart of the kingdom of Rosawait stood a rose-pink castle, with tall ivory towers that glittered in the morning sun. Inside the highest turret lived a little princess named Lilybell, though everyone called her Princess Lily. She was no ordinary princess. Her hair was spun of dawn's first light, her eyes mirrored the soft green of spring leaves. She had silken gowns of every pastel hue, a closet that held more shoes than the birds held feathers, and a library of fairy tale books that stretched from floor to rafters. Yet for all her riches and all her treasures, there was something missing from her life: a true friend. Every day, at the hour when the bells chimed 10 and the dew still lay in sparkling droplets on the garden petals, Princess Lily would press her nose to the arched window and watch the townspeople bustling through the cobbled streets. She longed to join them, children laughing as they chased one another, mothers carrying baskets of fresh bread, and the stable boys coaxing gentle ponies to trot alongside. But the castle gates were high and guarded, and custom decreed that royal children mustn't mingle freely with common folk. So Princess Lily turned to her only companions, her dolls. She had Princess Arabella with a gown of sea-glass green, Sir Cedric the Brave in his silver armor, and tiny Queen Marigold with a crown of gold filigree. For hours she arranged grand tea parties on a lace-covered table and told them stories of daring quests. Yet each time she leaned in to share a secret, all she heard was the rustle of silk and the muffled click of wooden joints. The dolls never spoke back, and the princess's heart ached for a friend who would. One bright morning, determined to find company, Princess Lily tiptoed out of her bedchamber, clutching a piece of cheese from the palace kitchen. She crept along the corridor's tapestried walls until she reached the end, where a tiny gray mouse peered out from behind a suit of armor. The mouse's whiskers quivered, but Princess Lily knelt as quietly as she could. "Hello, dear mouse," she whispered, holding out the cheese. "Would you like to be my friend?" The mouse sniffed, blinked its small coal-black eyes, and darted away with a squeak, vanishing into a crack in the stone floor. Princess Lily felt her shoulders slump. Even the littlest animals seemed too shy to stay. Undeterred, she wandered into the castle courtyard, where the garden bloomed in a riot of roses, daisies, and lavender. Sunlight danced on the fountain's water, and fat honeybees buzzed amid the blooms. There, beside a patch of bluebells, sat a stately tortoise, Sir Oliver, as she promptly named him, pausing in his slow pilgrimage across the flagstones. "Good morning, Sir Oliver," she said, leaning low so he could hear. "Would you like to be my friend and explore the gardens with me?" Sir Oliver blinked his wise old eyes but made no reply. He simply ambled on at his steady pace, nibbling a leaf as he went. Princess Lily laughed softly at his comical stoicism. "Perhaps you are more of an explorer than a chatter," she told him kindly, "and that is quite all right." As the sun climbed higher, Princess Lily sat upon a marble bench under an apple tree, her frock spread around her like an open blossom. She gazed out at the castle grounds, whispering to herself dreamily about what it would be like to have a friend who could laugh with her, cry with her, and share in her adventures. She imagined riding through the forest on horseback, discovering hidden waterfalls, building tiny forts of sticks and leaves, only it was always her alone, or her silent dolls, or the impassive tortoise. When the lunchtime bell rang, she returned to the castle in even fewer moods than before. The grand dining hall was filled with chatter, ministers speaking of treaties, knights boasting of tournaments, and servants bustling with platters of roast pheasant and crystal goblets of sparkling lemonade. She ate her meal politely, but her mind was on friendship. Even the sumptuous flavors could not lift her spirits. Late that afternoon, weary from her efforts, Princess Lily found herself at her favorite spot, a small balcony overlooking the castle's east gardens, where wild foxgloves nodded their pink bells in the breeze. She leaned on the carved stone balustrade, closed her eyes, and began to hum a gentle tune, a lullaby her mother once sang to her as a baby. The tune carried on the wind, and, for a moment, she felt as if the birds perched in a nearby cherry tree were listening. "Oh, I wish someone could hear what I have to say," she murmured. "I wish that I were never lonely." Just then, an elderly lady in a lavender cloak appeared at the balcony door. It was Nanny Millicent, the princess's caretaker since she could toddle, with eyes as kindly as melted butter and a heart full of ancient stories. She carried a soft blanket and a wicker basket. "My dear," said Nanny Millicent softly, "why are you here all alone at this hour?" Princess Lily sighed and told her of the day's attempts. the mouse that scurried away, the tortoise who would not speak, and the dolls who would not answer back. Nanny Millicent listened patiently, nodding. "There was once a princess who felt just as you do," she said at last, settling beside Lily and wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. Her kingdom was enchanted, and though she lived in the grandest castle, she too longed for a friend. One night, as she gazed at the silver moon, a soft voice whispered through the trees, calling her name. It was an invitation to venture into the whispering woods, where woodland creatures talked, flowers sang, and the very air shimmered with magic. Princess Lily's green eyes widened. "The Whispering Woods?" she echoed. In her storybooks, that place was alive with fireflies that spelled out secret wishes, and owls that told riddles in the dark. But it also held shadows and unfamiliar paths. "Not until you are ready," Nanny Millicent said, rising to her feet. "We will prepare lanterns and a picnic basket, and tomorrow at dawn you can set out. Who knows what friends you might find? Perhaps a squirrel who loves tickles, or a deer that hums tunes, or a shy little elf who carries dreams in her pockets." That night, Princess Lily could hardly close her eyes. In her mind, she pictured the forest's emerald canopy, the soft moss underfoot, and flickering lights dancing between the branches. She imagined hearing laughter not her own, feeling a hand slip into hers, and sharing whispered secrets beneath the moonlight. When at last Nanny Millicent tucked her into her satin-lined bed and drew the silken curtains, Lily clasped a small wooden locket, her only keepsake from her mother, against her heart. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "tomorrow I will find a friend." The room grew still except for the quiet breathing of the princess as she drifted into sleep. Outside, the tall towers of the castle were silver in the moonlight, and the soft hum of crickets rose from the gardens. Somewhere far off, an owl hooted a gentle greeting. And so ended the first day in the grand quest of Princess Lily, the day she decided that even the tallest walls could not keep her from finding true friendship. When dawn broke, the Whispering Woods would call her name, and her adventure would begin in earnest. But for now, she dreamed of new friends, new stories, and a world where she would never be lonely again. End of part 1 of 5. Part 2. The Secret of the Moonlit Garden. Early one morning, before rosy dawn had fully painted the sky, Princess Alara slipped out of her soft silken bed and tiptoed to the tall arched window of her turret chamber. The castle lay hushed in the pale light, its towers and spires rimmed in mist. Alara pressed her cheek against the cool glass. Somewhere beyond those ancient walls, she hoped, she would at last find a friend. Down the spiral staircase she went, careful not to wake the castle servants. At the bottom, the massive oaken doors to the gardens stood slightly ajar, an invitation she dared not refuse. Beyond them lay a world that seemed made for friendship. Winding brick paths, lantern-lit alcoves, fountains whose waters tinkled like laughter. Just as Alara had imagined, the air was sweet with jasmine and honeysuckle, and dewdrops sparkled like diamonds on the broad green leaves. She wandered along the rose-bordered walk and whispered, "Hello, is anyone there?" A soft rustle answered her, and out hopped a little white bunny with velvet ears and timid black eyes. The bunny froze for a moment, twitching its nose, then took a cautious hop closer. "My name is Alara," said the princess in a gentle voice. "I'd love to be your friend." The bunny darted back and then hopped forward again. Smiling, Alara knelt on the grass. "Would you like a nibble of this carrot?" She held out a slender orange stick. The bunny's nose wiggled, and finally, he edged forward, gently nibbling the carrot. The princess laughed in delight. "You must be Willow," she whispered, though she didn't know the bunny's name yet. "I'm so glad to meet you." Willow's ears twitched in approval, and Alara stood. "Come along, Willow. We have more friends to meet." She followed a moonstone-inlaid path deeper into the garden. Before long, they came to a circle of toadstools by an ancient oak. A squirrel sat perched on one, nibbling an acorn. He chattered loudly and tipped his furry tail back and forth. "Hello, Mr. Squirrel," Alara said, curtsying. "I'm Princess Alara. This is Willow." The squirrel paused, acorn halfway to his mouth. "I'm Pippin," he declared in a voice as high as a wind chime. He bounded off his toadstool, zoomed around Willow's twitching ears, and came to a stop on Alara's shoulder. He gave her a friendly pat. "Finally a princess who speaks squirrel," he chittered. Alara giggled as Pippin scurried down her dress and darted off toward a sparkling fountain. Willow followed Pippin's zigzagging path, and Ilara hurried after them all, feeling braver than she ever had in her golden tiara. At the fountain, water danced over pale stone, and fireflies hovered above, casting tiny halos of light. Ilara scooped a handful of cool water and let it trickle between her fingers. "Look over there," Pippin said, chattering. Ilara turned to see a graceful fawn with speckled flanks emerging from the lilac hedges. Big, gentle eyes regarded her shyly. The fawn stepped forward and lowered her head, as if bowing in greeting. Ilara knelt again. "Hello, I'm Ilara. Would you like to be my friend?" The fawn lifted her head, her eyes brightening, and nuzzled Ilara's hand. Willow hopped up to sniff the fawn's nose. "This must be Nessa," Ilara murmured, for only a name as soft as the moonlight could suit so gentle a friend. Just then a slow flap of wings drifted from above. Perched on a low branch of the fountain's marble pedestal was an owl, majestic, with feathers the color of storm clouds and eyes wise as the night sky. She blinked curiously at the princess. "I am Lumina," the owl said in a voice as smooth as velvet. "I often watch the garden by moonlight." "It seems you have a kind heart, Princess Ilara." Ilara felt a thrill at being addressed so directly. "Lumina, I'm so happy to meet you too." She glanced at Willow, Pippin, and Nessa. "Would y'all like to come with me to the glass pavilion? I brought honey cakes for tea." She took from her pocket a small silver box, and inside sat 3 round honey cakes, edged with lavender. The friends broke into tinkling cheers. Hand and hoof and paw and wing, they followed Ilara through twisting hedges until a sunlit glass pavilion bloomed before them. Its walls were paneled with colored glass that caught the morning sun and threw rainbows across the marble floor. A low table stood at its center, set with porcelain cups and a teapot shaped like a rosebud. Ilara poured sweet tea, and they nibbled honey cakes while Lumina told tales of moonbeams that danced on midnight rivers, of ancient oaks that whispered secrets in the breeze. Pippin chattered eagerly about his acorn hunts, Willow twitched with excitement as she spoke of burrows hidden beneath the ivy, and Nessa told the princess of forest glades she had never dared explore, until now. Ilara listened in wonder. She had never imagined the garden could be so alive with voices and laughter. As the sun climbed higher, shadows shortened and the day felt warm on their faces. Ilara yawned, and suddenly she realized how long they had been together. "Oh my," she said, stretching lightly. "You've all been so kind to me. I have to return before the castle lanterns are extinguished. But," she paused, "would you like to meet again tonight, when the moon is out?" Lumina flapped her wings softly. "At the moonlit pond, the lilies glow so gently. I shall guide you." Pippin did a little dance in delight. Willow hopped up and down. Nessa lowered her head in joyful agreement. Ilara clasped her hands. "Then it's settled. Tonight, at the moonlit pond." She stood and gave each friend a gentle hug, paw to hand, hoof to wrist, and a fond head pat on her owl friend's soft feathers. They parted ways at the garden's edge, Willow bounding down a hidden burrow path, Pippin scuttling up a tall oak, Nessa slipping silently into the lilac hedges, and Lumina flying back among the boughs. Ilara watched them go until the last leaf shivered in the gentle breeze, then turned to re-enter the castle through the great wooden doors. In the corridor, the torches were still lit, and she passed quietly through halls that gleamed with polished marble. She climbed the spiral staircase once more, each step echoing in the hush. Back in her turret room, she changed into her softest nightgown, the one embroidered with silver stars, and slipped beneath the covers. She pressed her cheek against her pillow and closed her eyes, a contented smile on her lips. Before drifting off, she whispered into the darkness, "Thank you, Willow, Pippin, Nessa, and Lumina. Tonight, we'll meet again by the moonlit pond and be the best of friends forever." Outside her window, the garden waited patiently for dusk, ready to welcome a princess and her newfound friends to another night of wonder. And though Ilara did not yet know all the adventures ahead, in her heart she felt a glow as warm as sunrise itself, a gentle promise that she was never truly alone. And so, with hope shining like a star in her dreams, Princess Ilara began a night of peaceful slumber, certain that by the moon's silver light, new magic and friendship would bloom once more. End of Part 2. Part 3. The Lantern Festival in Moonlight Glade. That evening, as the golden sun slipped behind lilac-tinted hills, Princess Elowen adjusted the little lantern she carried. The soft glow of its flame danced in her bright eyes, casting gentle shadows on the mossy path. Since sunset beckoned and the forest began to hum with twilight's magic, the time had come for her to follow the owl's instructions. She must find the moonlight glade, where a secret festival was about to begin. Elowen's heart fluttered with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Never in her life had she attended a festival that was not held inside the castle walls. Still, her new friends, Whiskery Squirrel, who had taught her how to climb fallen logs, and the wise old owl, who guided her with hooting riddles, had promised warmth, laughter, and new friendships. She gathered her courage and pressed on. 1. Through the whispering pines. The path wound between towering pines whose needles hummed in the evening breeze. The trees seemed to lean in, as if curious about the little princess who tiptoed beneath them. Elowen stroked the soft trunk of one mighty pine. "Thank you for lighting my way," she whispered. A gentle breeze rustled the needles overhead, and she smiled, believing the forest itself welcomed her. 2. Along the starlit brook. Soon she reached a brook whose waters glimmered like liquid starlight. Stones smoothed by ages of flow served as stepping stools. Elowen hopped across with nimble grace, her reflection rippling to meet her. There, perched on a rock, was Firefly, a tiny glowing insect, who had volunteered to guide her the rest of the way. "Follow my light," Firefly blinked. Elowen nodded and stepped onto the final stone, careful not to slip. 3. Into the moonlight glade. At last the trees opened into a wide clearing. Moonlight bathed the grass in silver. Lanterns of colored glass hung from low-hanging branches, swaying like jeweled fruit. Long ribbons fluttered from branch to branch, and at the center stood a ring of mushrooms, an ancient fairy circle. Soft music drifted on the night air, the gentle strum of a mandolin, the sweet trill of a flute, and the rhythmic heartbeat of a tiny drum. Elowen's breath caught. She had never felt such wonder. Before her stood dozens of creatures, some she recognized, others brand new. Rabbits wore little vests. Hedgehogs tapped small wooden sticks in time with the drum. A fox with bright, curious eyes greeted her with a polite nod. Every face she passed turned in warm welcome. "Princess Elowen," called a lilting voice. It was Moonbeam the fairy, her silvery wings glinting. "We've been waiting for you." Elowen curtsied. "I thank you for inviting me." 4. The festival begins. Moonbeam guided her to a long table heaped with forest delicacies. Honeyed berries, acorn cakes, and glistening dewdrop tarts. Squirrel popped out from behind a platter. "Try this," he urged, offering a tart. "It's sweet as a morning kiss." Elowen tasted it and found it indeed held the gentle warmth of dawn. With each bite, her worries melted away. All around, friends old and new gathered. There was Bramble the hedgehog, who taught her how to tap out quiet rhythms. Fern the fawn, who bowed politely and invited Elowen to join a gentle moonlit dance. And Lark the songbird, whose melodies soared like soft ribbons across the sky. To honor their guest, the forest folk had prepared a special game, the lantern dance. Each participant lit a tiny lantern and danced in a spiral, passing the light from person to person. At first, Elowen hesitated. What if she tripped in her silken slippers or let go of the lantern? But Fern took her hand, guiding her into the first steps. The lantern's glow warmed Elowen's palm as she followed the steps. A. Step forward on your left foot. B. Spin gently, keeping the lantern high. B. Z. Step back on your right foot and curtsy. D. Pass the lantern on with a smile. Laughter rose like bubbles as children and woodland creatures alike joined in. When Elowen passed her lantern to Rabbit, she felt its light mingle with his, as though each new hand filled it with fresh joy. 5. A moment of quiet. After the dance, the music softened. Elowen found herself drawn to a small pond at the edge of the glade. Moonbeams rippled across its surface, and on its shores sat Owl, who regarded her with kind, knowing eyes. "You have done well," he hooted softly. "But the greatest gift of tonight is not the dancing or the songs. It is friendship." Elowen knelt beside him. "I always wished for friends, and I found so many." She smiled, the memory of her lonely castle evenings far behind her. "But I'd like to be sure I can keep these friendships. Will they still be here tomorrow?" Owl ruffled his feathers. "Friendship, like the forest, grows with care. When you return to the castle, remember what you feel now: kindness, trust, and joy. Share it, and your friends will never fade. 6. Gifts of the Forest. As a parting gift, each friend offered Eowyn something small yet meaningful. Rabbit gave her a soft clover puff to remind her of laughter. Bramble the hedgehog pressed a smooth acorn shell into her hand, symbolizing resilience. Fern tucked a tiny sprig of fern leaves into her belt for gentle guidance. Lark the songbird sang her a lullaby, the tune settling into Eowyn's heart like a promise. Squirrel left a single golden chestnut, bright as the sun, to represent hope. Eowyn placed each treasure carefully in her satchel. "I will cherish them always," she promised. 7. Homeward under the stars. Though part of her longed to dance until dawn, she knew the palace awaited. When she stepped beyond the glade's edge, the forest seemed to hush as if bidding her good night. Firefly lit the way back along the brook. The whispering pines waved their needles in farewell. By the time Eowyn reached the castle gate, the moon had climbed high. She slipped past the sleeping guards. No one stirred when they saw her gentle smile. Up the grand staircase she tiptoed, each step guided by the memories of laughter, music, and friendship. 8. A Princess's Promise. In her chambers, Princess Eowyn laid out the treasures on her bedside table. One by one, she touched them, closing her eyes and remembering each friend's laughter and kindness. The clover puff, the acorn shell, the fern sprig, the golden chestnut, they glowed softly in the lamp's light, as if indeed holding living warmth. She climbed into her bed, tucking the blanket around her. Before sleep claimed her, she made a quiet vow. "Tomorrow, I will ride beyond the castle walls to the village. I will share songs and stories, and I will invite new friends to visit the forest festival too. No one should ever feel alone again." And with that, Princess Eowyn drifted into dreams where lanterns flickered, friends laughed, and the forest whispered promises of tomorrow's adventures. As the candle in her room guttered low, the hush of night settled in every corner of the castle. Yet in the princess's heart, a bright glow remained, an endless flame of friendship that would guide her through every dawn. To be continued in Part 4. Part 4. The Moonlit Meadow and the Promise of Tomorrow. Late that afternoon, when sunlight draped the treetops in golden lace, Princess Amelie and her friends crept through the last of the whispering pines. Oliver the squirrel led the way on nimble paws, nose twitching at the scent of sweetgrass and honeysuckle. Luna the fawn, a gentle soul with legs like willow wands, moved quietly beside him, her heart alight at having someone brave at her side. And close behind, Willow the fairy hummed a soft tune, her wings glimmering like dew-kissed petals in the fading light. "We're almost there," Oliver chattered, glancing back at Amelie. "The moonlit meadow lies just beyond that rise." He hopped onto a mossy rock to survey the valley below. Silver moonflowers dotted the grass, their petals unfurling, even before the first star winked in the sky. The air shimmered with promise, and if one listened closely, with an undercurrent of challenge. Amelie's heart fluttered. She'd never before ventured so far from her castle, and yet, here she stood among friends who made the journey feel like home. "I can't wait to see it," she whispered, smoothing her gown so it wouldn't snag on brambles. Her rose-gold hair caught the last rays of sun, and her eyes gleamed with excitement. Together they slid down the gentle slope until the meadow opened before them like a secret dream. The moonflowers glowed pale blue, bathing every blade of grass in soft light. A low hum rose all around, gentle, steady, as if the earth itself were singing. The scent of lavender and chamomile wove through the breeze, lulling the mind into calm wonder. "It's even more magical than I imagined," Amelie breathed, stepping forward. At once the hum grew louder, swirling into a circle around them. Before any of them could move, the flowers pulsed in time to the sound, and from the grass emerged a circle of small, luminescent creatures, gourd-bellied toads with twinkling eyes, firefly-winged mice, and fox-pups with silver-tipped tails. A hush fell. Then the forest erupted in cheers. From among the villagers, a kindly baker named Esme stepped forward, dragging a wooden crate. "Princess, we brought our hymn books so we can sing together." She opened the crate, revealing sheets of paper with lyrics to cheerful melodies. Next, Fiona produced a lantern that glowed warm and golden, and another fox joined by placing his fiddle on a hollow stump to improvise a gentle tune. Aurelia's heart soared. This was exactly what she had hoped for, a festival not just of colors and dances, but of shared spirit and resilience. She sat on a broad root of the oak, motioning for everyone else to gather close. The hedgehogs curled in a tight semicircle, the squirrels perched on lower branches, the deer and badgers nestled at the edge, the villagers crowded in, singing lantern light on their faces. Esme counted the beat, and soon all were singing a joyful melody about sunshine and friendship. Willow chimed in with a high-pitched trill, Fiona tapped her paws in rhythm, Oliver added a gentle hoot. The sound of their united voices rose above the rainfall like the song of the forest itself. When the final note faded, thunder rumbled afar, and the rain softened to a gentle drizzle. Aurelia stood and brushed rain droplets from her gown. "Thank you, everyone," she said, her voice warm. "This storm may have come uninvited, but you, my dear friends, turned it into something wonderful. Your kindness and creativity have made this the most memorable festival ever." At that moment, the sky brightened. Sunbeams filtered through spreading clouds, splashing the oak's leaves with luminous gold. As if on cue, Oliver flapped his wings and hooted one last triumphant note. The forest canopy parted, and rainbows arched across the sky above the castle spires. The guests clapped and cheered once more. Slowly they emerged from beneath the oak. The rain had left the lawn fresh and sparkling like a treasure trove of jewels. The fiddler returned to his stage, now perfectly dry and framed by soft sunlight. The harpist began to pluck gentle strings, and the dance floor filled again with twirling skirts, hopping animals, and laughing children. Princess Aurelia took Willow's paw and led her back to the fountain, where she knelt to gather mint-scented water in her two hands. She splashed the water into the air, letting droplets catch the rainbow's colors as they fell. "Here's to friendship," she whispered. "May it always bring light, even after the rain." As the day wore on, the festival unfolded in a radiant blend of music, stories, and games. The hedgehogs hosted a roll-the-acorn race, the squirrels taught fancy footwork, the deer guided a gentle nature walk, and the baker offered tiny honey cakes that melted on the tongue. Aurelia exchanged smiles and soft words with everyone she met, her heart aglow. When the sun began its slow descent behind the western hills, Aurelia rose onto the stage beside the fiddler and harpist. The festival quieted in anticipation. She cleared her throat, her cheeks warm with a mix of pride and a touch of shyness, and addressed the assembled guests. "My friends," she began, her voice steady, "today we have shared laughter, shelter, music, and courage. We've danced in sunshine and in rain. Most important of all, we have reminded ourselves that friendship is like a garden. It takes patience, it blooms with care, and it grows stronger with every kind word spoken and every hand offered. From this day forward, let us promise to keep our hearts open, to help one another in need, and to celebrate the joy of being together." A hush fell over the crowd, and then, in a single breath, they burst into applause and cheers. The forest creatures hooted and chattered. The villagers clapped so loudly the sound echoed against the castle walls. Willow hopped onto Aurelia's shoulder and squeaked in agreement. At that grand moment, King Percival and Queen Rosalind emerged from the castle doors. They had watched the entire festival from a balcony, their smiles wide and eyes glistening with pride. Making their way down, they embraced their daughter in warm royal gowns that fluttered like spring blossoms in the breeze. "My brave and kind Aurelia," the queen whispered, "you have filled this castle, and all our hearts, with happiness today. You taught us a lesson in courage and friendship that we will always treasure. And you've made more friends than any princess before," the king added, picking up a small fawn by the shoulder and giving it a gentle nod. "For that, I hereby declare you Princess of Friendship, the greatest honor in all the kingdom." Aurelia's cheeks flushed, and she curtsied deeply. Fiona raised her red brush of a tail. Oliver dropped low in a reverent bow. The squirrels cheered. A brass herald stepped forward to proclaim the new title. And in that swirl of celebration, Aurelia felt a gentle tap on her arm. She looked down to see a tiny field mouse extending a daisy. "For you, princess," squeaked the mouse. "Thank you for inviting us all." Aurelia knelt and accepted the daisy, pinning it to her gown. "Thank you for coming," she replied. "The friendship of each of you is the greatest gift of all." As the twilight deepened into a velvet dusk, lanterns were lit once again. Tables were reset, and guests were served hot herbal tea in delicate porcelain cups, accompanied by buttery scones and spiced apple cider. There was more singing, more laughter, and finally, a soft hush as the animals and villagers prepared to leave. The princess escorted her friends to the castle gates. She gave Willow a gentle hug, Fiona a playful nuzzle, and Oliver a soft feathered peck on the cheek. To each hedgehog, squirrel, and deer, she bade a fond farewell. The villagers promised to return for another festival come harvest time. And one by one, they walked back into the forest or down the moonlit road to their homes. At last, only Aurelia, her parents, and a few trusted castle attendants remained in the garden. The lanterns glowed silently among the rose bushes, and the air smelled of honey, mint, and moss. Kingdom and forest alike rested, hearts full from a day of kindness. Queen Rosalind slipped her arm through Aurelia's. "Come, my dear," she said softly. "It is late, and you must rest." Princess Aurelia nodded, her eyelids heavy but her spirit bright. She looked back once at the garden where her friends had danced, sang, and sheltered one another. A contented sigh escaped her. "I am so happy," she whispered. "I have never felt so surrounded by love." King Percival smiled as he offered his daughter his arm. "That, my princess, is the magic of friendship, stronger than any spell, more precious than any jewel." Hand in hand, they walked up the marble steps and through the grand hall, the flicker of wall torches casting gentle shadows. Aurelia's slippers made soft echoes, like her heartbeat after a perfect day. In her chambers, servants removed her gown and helped her into a cotton nightdress embroidered with tiny lilies. She slid beneath her canopy, and the chamberlain closed the shutters to keep out the moon's glare. Queen Rosalind kissed her daughter's forehead. "Good night, my brave princess." King Percival stooped to tuck the blankets around Aurelia. "Dream sweet dreams of dancing lanterns and singing friends." Aurelia yawned, the hush of the castle wrapping around her like a tender hug. "Good night, mother. Good night, father. I love you both." "And we love you," they murmured in unison as they tiptoed away, leaving the room in gentle candlelight. Alone at last, Princess Aurelia smiled to herself. She thought of every friend she had made, each one a shining star in her heart. She remembered the laughter, the songs, the brave shelter under the great oak, and the gift of the daisy from the field mouse. With a happy sigh, she sank into slumber. Outside, the wind stirred in the treetops, whispering secrets of tomorrow's adventures. But for now, all was peaceful. Friendship had worked its gentle magic, binding forest and kingdom together in harmony. And so, amid the soft glow of candlelight and the delicate rustle of curtains, Princess Aurelia dreamed of dancing among fireflies, of the smell of honeysuckle, and of the wonderful, unending adventure that is friendship. The end.